Welcome back to the Team to Beat Miami Heat podcast, your one-stop shop for daily Miami Heat and NBA content. My name is Amir. For this episode, we have Gio back on the podcast once again. Welcome back to the show. How are you doing today, Gio?
Doing good, man. Thanks for having me on. It's always an honor to be here and a privilege. And let's talk about it, man. Let's see what this offseason is all about, dude.
Yeah, man. I think the last time we talked was we talked about the play-in, and then I think I think we did one post-game recap during the Cavs series, and so we all know how that ended up. The Heat lost 2 games in a row by like 94 points or whatever it was, and like the delta between the 4 games was like 150 something points, which was like the worst in NBA history. So very rough season and very rough postseason for this Miami Heat team. And so there's a lot of questions that have been unanswered so far, and NBA finals are currently happening right now. And I think a lot more traction will happen, a lot more conversations will happen once the NBA season playoffs are over. And then we have the NBA draft coming up soon. But let's talk about the offseason plans for this Miami Heat team, or just some rumors and speculation. So what do you think the Miami Heat's biggest priority should be this offseason? Because we had a ton of holes. So where do you think they
Yes.
should focus on? Not like necessarily who, but just like what areas do we need to improve?
Yeah, so I think the biggest priority heading into this offseason in terms of the roster is adding a playmaking guard. I think that's very crucial. You've seen it, all the successful teams had it. We saw that with the final four teams, right? You had Jalen Brunson, you have Tyrese Halliburton, you have Ant, you got on the other side SGA. You just need that in today's NBA, where like in the 90s and 80s, you needed a big man, unless you had Michael Jordan on your team. This day and age, you need a playmaking guard or a wing, but ideally, this team, they have Wiggins, they have, we don't know if he's going to be back, but they have Tyler, they have Bam. They need a guard that can just settle them down when things get tight in the fourth quarter, which is, we saw that Miami lost, I think it was 17 double digit leads in the second half. Like that was ridiculous. Imagine if they win half of those games, they'd be a top six team in the East. So, I think having a point guard that can slow the tempo, that can just play at his pace, and it doesn't have to be a superstar. People think that, oh, you need a superstar. You can have all stars and be successful. Maybe not a contending team, but if you have a point guard that can kind of facilitate and throw those nice lobs to Khalil and put Bam where he needs to be, and maybe not have Tyler on the ball so much, I would say that that would be my priority. And I think we've seen Miami take that. There's been some confirmed, not just rumors, but confirmed draft workouts with several point guards. If I'm not mistaken, I think that's the position that Miami has most worked out. So I think they're heading in that direction. Not saying that that's going to be their first round pick, but we do know that they're looking at some second round options and some undrafted options. And we've heard of Walter Clayton Jr. and other things like that, who's he's more of a scoring point guard, but still, I would say that that would be the top priority heading into this offseason. And then all the other rumors with Giannis and KD and all that, I think that's more secondary.
Yeah, so you brought it up. The draft's coming up in June. We have the 20th pick in the first round. And are there any other specific names of those prospects that you think the Miami Heat should target that are point guards or even shooting guards, maybe, who can also be playmakers and help facilitate? Any
Yeah,
names that come up?
definitely. Yeah, definitely. Obviously, the guys that we're hearing that are before the 20th pick, you'd want that. Like, I love Trey Johnson, but he's not going to fall at 20. But Miami, although I like Walter Clayton Jr., I think he's great. I think he'll have a solid career. I think a better fit for Miami would be Ben Saraff. I
Mm-hmm.
love his play style. He reminds me a lot of Goran Dragic, but he has a little bit more vision. He's not as a brute, Goran, especially later on in his career, was just that iron shoulders, what they called it. He
Mm-hmm.
was one of the best in the league at finishing at the basket. Didn't matter for what position, just he was one of the best, top 10. in his prime. But Ben Suraf, I love his game. I think it'll translate to the NBA. A lot of people have this misconception that European guys can't guard. I'm not saying that Ben is going to be a lockdown defender, but he's not going to be a liability, in my opinion. I think he'd be a great fit for them at 20. I think he provides a little bit of what they need. I'm not out there saying that he's going to be an all-star player, but I see his career arc being that of a Mike Conley, of a Goran, where maybe he's a guy that's a fringe all-star, or maybe a one-time all-star, but gives you a solid 14 and 7, 14 and 8, has a nice long steady career.
Yeah. What also think about it? Like what point guard in the NBA is a true two-way player? Like besides a Drew Holiday who's aging, there's probably a few more, but that's the top one that comes up to mind. Like you have Luca, who's like a giant point guard, like Magic Johnson esque, I guess, but not quite as big as Magic, but still 6'7". So
Yeah.
he's not traditional, but still he's amazing and elite offensively, gets cooked on defense. Jalen Brunson, amazing offensively, is a pit bull for his size, but he's small and he gets bullied and he's not the best defender either. So like they make up for it with elite offense. But like you just think of all the Trey Young, amazing offense gets hunted. Like there's not you look at on our roster who we added, like Davion's not in the caliber of any of the players I mentioned before, but like Davion is elite on defense, not so much on offense. Like I can't think of many outside of Drew Holiday in his
Yeah.
prime. Like a DeJounte Murray, I guess. Like I thought he was a better defender than he was, but like he's not a slouch. But even him, it's like he's more
Well,
offensive minded, right? Like there's not many in that.
yeah.
It's hard to find that.
So DeJounte, you bring up a great point. I think in order to be a liability on defense in today's game, you have to be elite or have an elite skill set offensively. Not just very good or good. You have to be that superstar level player where you're going to get us 40, and we know that we're going to have to cover for you on defense. But DeJounte, I think his defense slipped a little bit because I think in the right system on the right team, he'll be a very very good defender again. But I'll give you an example with Sharaf, right? Per se, I think he'd be a perfect fit on this team because one of the guards that I can think of that was a guy that he wasn't necessarily an above average playmaker, but he fit because he was around D Wade and LeBron was Mario Chalmers. He was a guy that was going to hit the open shot. He can attack a closeout. He wasn't a liability in that sense, and he can hit the open three. Somebody like that, I think, would be a good fit on this team if you're going to continue to have Bam and Tyler be the featured offensive options.
Definitely. And then we would hope that Khalil Ware evolves in a
Yes.
second year and gets up to like a 16-point game. If Khalil Ware can average 16 and 10 next season and like a block, like a steal, like that would be huge for us. Then we could have that point guard. But since we don't have that luxury and Andrew Wiggins is inconsistent, like maybe he can give us like 16, 17 a game in the regular season. I just don't I don't think we have enough depth on the bench to sustain like the scoring on this offensive roster. Like even if we have a point guard that can set the table like a Mario Chalmers, I think we need then like a Jordan Clarkson, a true
Yes.
sixth man. Then, like otherwise, I think we need that all star caliber type guard, like you said. It doesn't need to be a superstar, but we need a Dejounte Murray kind of guy, like that, like someone else that can score 15 and above. Like if we can add that type of depth, a DeJounte who can get you 15 or 16. Tyler gets you like the 22, 23. Wiggins gets you like 17, 18. And then Bam gets you like 18, 19. Like I think that can improve our team for sure. And then you would hope that Jaime comes out of that sophomore slump. Then you hope that Jovic can kind of be that point forward off the bench. I guess with Davion, I guess you would have Davion coming off the bench. So maybe that kind of affects Jovic's role, but still, like
Yeah.
that's a solid trio coming off the bench. Then you have Pella Larson and some other guys who could potentially score, but I still think I don't know, man. Points per game, we've been bottom 3 or 4 in the league for the last few years. Offensive rating, we've been bottom 10,
Yeah.
4 out of the last 5 years. So we need a star on this team. And you mentioned it earlier. There's a lot of rumors with KD and with Giannis and whoever it may be, a Zion potentially, a John Morant. Like there's a lot of possibilities. Giannis hasn't requested a trade, but it seems like there's a 50% chance at least this year he's gone. If not this season, maybe next season he's going to be gone.
Hmm.
KD is all but gone. I talked to a
Yeah.
Phoenix
He's
Suns.
done.
I talked to a Suns reporter yesterday. who's close to the team. He said KD's gone for sure. Do you think there's a realistic chance Miami gets any high caliber player like that, an all-star superstar? If not, what's a more realistic option for trades this season? How we can improve and get that playmaker or get another big, because now the Clell's
Mhm.
starting and probably will start. Like we need a backup big then, right?
Yeah,
Because all we have is really Jovic that adds size off the bench. So, what are your thoughts on that?
definitely. I do not believe that Miami will get a whale, if you will, unless before the All Star break or before the trade deadline, someone asks out. Like nobody saw De'Aaron Fox asking out, and he did. You never know what can happen. Maybe some of those options that you can foresee is like a Trey Young, somebody like that. But I think something that's realistic and something that will address needs is the number one thing I mentioned to you is adding a point guard. Um, I on Twitter a few days ago, I went ahead and I put a hypothetical, realistic trade option for Miami, and it was Terry Rozier and 2 second-round picks for Colin Sexton. That was something that I feel is a realistic thing. He's a better point of attack defender than Terry Rozier is. You can slot him next to Tyler. I think that would have been a great option. You brought one up yourself, and this goes to my second thing that I think Miami needs to improve is scoring off the bench so that you can give Tyler and Bam a blow. A guy like a Jordan Clarkson, who I don't think Miami would pursue. He's a little bit older. I think he's 32 now. And I know he's had some smoke with Goran, who might be brought in to the front office or the coaching staff. We'll see what happens. And then the third thing would be that third big. That can be resolved via trade. For example, if KD does come to Miami, then you can slot him next to Bam as the 4 and the 5, and then bring Khalil off the bench. Although I don't know if they do that because you want to start Khalil, you want to continue to let him develop and flourish, but they do need a third big. I would love it if they can figure out a way to get like a Nas Reed, for example, but I don't know how realistic that could be. But those are the three things that I would address: bench scoring, a third big, and a point guard.
Hey, but Kevin Durant thinks he's a small forward. So you put Davion, Tyler, KD, Bam, and Ware. That's a lethal. That's a lethal starting five right there. You got so much length, so much size that would help with the rebounding. Tyler's a good rebounding guard, and then Kevin Durant's still pretty good at rebounding at this age.
Hmm.
And Kalel's only going to get better as he improved drastically this season in general with boxing out, positioning, grabbing the ball with two goddamn hands. If you remember that, but
Yeah,
that would be crazy if those were the three. Because KD said he's a small forward. Then we have no real. Then we would have to add a backup
yeah.
Steven Adams type player if we can get someone
Whew,
like on a veteran mid coming off with Nico. Then we have size off the bench too. That would be huge
that'd
for
be huge.
that would be huge. But we'll see. I don't know if Kevin Durant even wants to come to Miami at this point. Like it seems like he's going to go to Houston or Spurs or some dark horse.
Yeah,
Memphis, maybe Memphis for some reason. He pairs with Jaw and Triple J, right? Like, who knows? Because they're
yeah,
not going to be able to pay Bane, perhaps either. They might have to make a move as well.
yeah.
So, um, but yeah. So speaking of the roster, um, how do you feel about the Heat's current mix of veterans and young players? Like, the Heat still haven't picked a direction. We've done this blended build again, even with Jimmy Butler. We were doing that with PJ and with Kyle, and then playing the younger guys like Tyler, Bam, Max Struess, younger undrafted guys, right, that were cheap. So we're still kind of, and Nico was kind of in that rotation for a little bit with Jimmy 2 seasons ago. During the second season when he was starting a little bit here and there, even though he only played like 45 games. But what do you think about the blended build again? Because that's what we're kind of still doing right now with I mean Terry's out of the rotation, but he was still in that rotation for a little bit, and now Wiggins is a little bit older. Do you think we should lean more into the development side, or continue to have a win now mentality? And if we have the win now mentality, we have Bam and Tyler as our two, but like it's not good enough. Like unless we add a KD or above player, like you mentioned earlier, Trey
Yeah.
Young. Like, do we go for that win now with like adding a Trey or KD to be a part of that three, or do we say screw it and throw them in the fire? Like give Nico more time, Jaime more time, Pella more time, Ware more time with Bam and Tyler. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on that?
Well, I think you always get the best player and figure everything else after that, right? You just go for whoever that is. Uh, I do think that the current build, I think that that team does need someone to come in and take some of that pressure off of Tyler, off of Bam. And if you can find that guy, great. If not, then it might be time to reset and let these young guys do their thing. Do I think one of these young guys will become the next superstar? I don't believe so, but you have to give it a shot and see where that could lead to. So I think that what they need to focus on right now is trying to figure out who they can add to the team. And if you can't add someone to the team that's going to take them to the next level, then reset and bear the roster for what it is and get these young guys into place. Because if you look at the roster right now, there's only really a few vets. There's Alec Burks, who's a free agent. Kevin Love, I think, is on the hook for one more year. You got Duncan, who's 31, who's kind of in and out of the rotation, and you got Wiggins, who's 30. Rozier, like you mentioned, is out of the rotation. Those are just a few pieces. Those are less than a handful of guys that are on the roster that are vets. So I think they are leaning young, but if they find that whale or that vet that can take them to the next level, I think that they'll do their best to try to find him and fit him into the squad.
Gotcha. Awesome. So before we close, so who do you think is the most underrated player on the Heat right now going into next season?
Underrated? Bam.
Yeah. You
It's
still
an easy
think
one
Bam's
for me.
underrated? Not
Yeah.
not according to tweet hitter, like to
Yeah,
tweet.
man. I
I was
mean,
gonna say
listen.
tweet hitter. I meant to say Heat Twitter. Like,
Yeah. Listen, I was just talking to one of my clients now before I got on and started talking to you about Bam, and he's the biggest Bam hater. Talking about how Bam's not aggressive and how he's overpaid and $37 million for a second or third option is ridiculous. Listen, there's a reason why Team USA continues to bring him back. There's a reason why he's a three-time All-Star. Why Dame has wanted to play with him. Why KD has wanted to play with him. Why Donovan wanted to play with him. There's a reason why all of these superstar caliber players want to play with this man. He does not get enough credit. He should have been a defensive player of the year back in 2022. They gave it to Marcus Smart. He's the only guy that 5 out of the last 6 years has been All NBA. I'm sorry, not All NBA, All Defensive Team, and people just continue to overlook him. And yes, he's 27 years old. Is he going to get much better? Who really knows? I mean, Steve Nash later on in his career is when he became who he was. But I do think that there's another level that he can get to. But I also think that he's been kind of uh, they haven't allowed him to fully blossom and give him the opportunities to be that 15 plus shot per game guy, if that's what you're looking for offensively. But that's just in my opinion who's the most underrated guy on the roster.
yeah. Also, it's like put him around better players, or like, I hate Trey Young so much, but Trey Young can unlock Bam. I think
Oh yeah,
with the
22 and
pick and
12.
roll and the lob. Like, some players just need a different, like a change of scenery, and they need to play with different players, and that's either like that's like Chris Bosh opposite, like because he had better stats and he was the number one option, but like in order to win a championship, he had to go play with LeBron and D Wade. And same with even
Hmm.
Pau Gasol. Pau Gasol, when he was on Memphis, he was the number one option. He was the guy like Chris Bosh. Then he went and played with the Lakers with Kobe, and he was the second fiddle. And he wasn't averaging 24 and 12. He was averaging 20 and 10, 18 and 9.
Yeah,
But they won a championship because it was a better fit. So like maybe the opposite could be with Bam. Like I'm not saying trade him, but like get someone on this roster to pair with Bam, or if for some reason Bam is tired of not winning, put him on another team and then watch him blossom, watch his stats go up, kind of like the
yep.
inverse of what I'm saying. Like sometimes you need a change of chemistry, change of scenery. Like he hasn't had the best optimal players around him in Jimmy and Tyler that unlock
Hmm.
him and activate him and complement him the best. And also, Bam's making 30, 35, and 37 the next two seasons. That's a steal. Like, yes,
Yeah,
paying Bam 50, 55, and 60 is kind of insane, truly, but that's just the
the cap is going there.
that's the
The
nature
cap
of
is
the
going
NBA
there.
is max players.
Yeah.
Like, here's before we close, Jalen Brown, like hell of a player, made a name for himself last season. Like obviously being Eastern Conference MVP, Finals MVP, had a hell of a run. He's a champion, but like at the time when he signed his contract, it was going to be the highest player. Is he the best player in the NBA? No, but like that's just the nature of contracts in the CBA. Like, is he worth 60 million next? He's making like 60 next season or 50
Let's
something,
see.
then
Yeah.
60, then 65. Like, is he worth that as the number two? No. Like, definitely not. So like you can argue that like that's worse of a contract than Bam, because Bam is a two-way player And like, yes, like he was a big factor of winning the championship for the Celtics, but you had Jason Tatum, who's the 1A, who I also hate. But then you had Porzingis and you had Drew Holiday and you had Derek White.
Yeah.
Like it's not just because of Jaylen Brown they won that championship. It's because of the way that roster was constructed, plus all the
Hmm.
injuries and all the luck that the Boston Celtics had last year, right? So I don't know why fans say Bam is not a max player. Like he's one of the best two-way players in the NBA.
Yeah.
He's never going to score 30 points per game. Like he's never going to freaking be like a guy who has a bag where he can, be a 3-level scorer. Like he's not that type of guy. Like he's not the Joker. He's never going to be a playmaker like Joker. He's not going to
Hmm.
be a scorer like Joker, but he brings intangibles and the defense that Joker doesn't have. Like I'm not
Yeah.
comparing Joker to Bam, but it's just funny when people think Bam is not worth what he's
Yeah.
making. It's like, of course, you don't know basketball. He's one of the best
Correct.
playmaking bigs in the NBA. He's one of the best defending bigs in the NBA. He can get you 18,
18 to
20,
24.
18. Well, not that. Well, I mean, this average, true average. He's averaging
Oh
like
yeah, yeah. 18
he's
to
like
20.
he's gonna get you 18, 10, and 5, like
Yeah.
and a block and a steal. Like
Yeah.
how many teams would want that? He's not the right fit on Miami to be the number 2. He should
Yeah.
be a number 3.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I
You're
think.
right.
You put Ant Edwards on this team, and if you put Ant Edwards on this team, then Tyler Hero can be my 2, and Bam can be my 3. Right? You need that type of caliber superstar. You put an SGA on this team, I don't think you would have Tyler Hero as your number 2, but Bam could be number 2 if SGA is your number 1, and then find a number 3, whoever that may be, like like a wing type of player, like that can work. So anyway, that's all the time I have for this episode. Gio, do you want to let the audience know where they can find you before we hop off?
Yeah, definitely on Twitter, Gio Valdez underscore, on Instagram and every other outlet, Coach Gio underscore. Would love to chat with you guys on there.
Awesome. Thanks again for hopping on, and hopefully we can get on here again soon during this long off season for the Miami Heat. So I'll see you soon.
See you soon, buddy. Take care.
Take care.